This is Mike Harris on the Rense Radio Network, and today is Tuesday, January 8th, 2013, and we're on with guest today, Jared Taylor. Jared, welcome back.
Thank you very much.
And anyway, where do you want to take the conversation? I know our time is limited. I think I've only got you for an hour unless I can talk you into staying on longer. But I'm working it right here.
I'm afraid I'm going to have to get off at the top of the hour here, but I did want to have an opportunity to talk about a conference that we have scheduled. We've planned it for the first weekend of April, April 5 through 7. It'll be close to Nashville, Tennessee. And American Renaissance has been holding conferences ever since 1994. This will be our 11th. And in the past, we've had some problems with conferences. We've had to cancel 2 conferences, actually. It was really a very embittering experience. But the people who claimed to be believers in tolerance and diversity were so intolerant and so unaccepting of a diverse point of view on certain subjects that they put tremendous pressure on the hotels that we had contracted with, and they ended up breaking their contracts with us. But now we have our conferences at government-owned facilities, and so we don't have any problem with that anymore. But the 11th American Renaissance Conference is going to come up, as I said, the first weekend of April. And we have some really quite interesting people who will be talking. There's one person whom I suspect none of your listeners have ever heard of. He's a Frenchman named Fabrice Robert. And this will be his first time to address an American audience. But he is with a French group called the Bloc Identitaire. And these people are absolute, outright nationalists who are very successful in getting their message across that they want France to remain French. They first attracted attention in 2006 when they started distributing ham sandwiches and pork soup to homeless people in the wintertime in France. Now, this, of course, was a slap in the face to all the Muslims who are supposed to not eat pork. And the authorities were all just in a terrible tizzy about this, as you can imagine. Oh, this is discriminatory. But the Bloc Identitaire people said, well, we're not discriminating at all. We're giving our free food to anybody who wants it. And but they were very clear that, sure, if a Muslim wants to commit some sort of heresy and drink pork soup, that's his business. But their point was, we are here to work for our people. We are helping our people. And just last fall, the Identitaire people, they occupied a site in Poitiers, France, where a mosque was to be built. And they chose that particular site because Poitiers is where Charles Martel stopped the advance of the Moorish hordes in 732. And for these people who are real French patriots, their view was, hold on, this is too symbolic. This is where our civilization was saved, and we're not going to stand for the idea of a mosque going up in this town. So Fabrice Robert, who is the head of this very successful activist nationalist group, he will be speaking. Another speaker, whom some of you have probably heard of this time, is John Derbyshire. He was a long-term contributor to National Review until he wrote a now notorious essay about what he tells his children about black people. Well, of course, what he tells his children about black people is nothing more than common sense. But these days, common sense can get you into terrible troubles. But besides him, we will have Ramz Paul. I don't know if you know him. He's a very clever kind of humorist and satirist. He describes himself as putting on YouTube videos in which pop culture meets nationalism. But he's really a very smart and entertaining guy. I could go on and tell you about the people who are speaking, but just to give you an idea of the sort of flavor of what's going on, our conference is explicitly pro-white and pro-West. And the point of it is for us to rekindle our consciousness of race and to renew our sense of Western peoplehood and try to reawaken this sense among whites that they have a glorious civilization that they must defend. And if any of your listeners are interested in attending the conference, if they go to our webpage at amren, amren.com, then they'll find all the details and all the registration information. And I can assure your listeners that there is nothing quite so invigorating as being in a room full of 200, 250 people, every one of whom understands what's going on. I remember at one American Renaissance conference, a fellow who had been at several of them before, the first thing he said when he saw me, and he had a big smile on his face, and the conference room was full of people who were talking, excited. He says, "It's so great to be among the living again." Well, that's what it's like when you're around your own people with whom you can work together, with whom you have common goals. It's great to be among the living again. And so I urge all of your listeners, if you have a chance, to join the living and join us. It'll be close to Nashville, Tennessee, April 5th through 7th. And the information, once again, is at amren, amren.com.
Well, I'd recommend them too. Do you have a website or any other place they can seek additional information, perhaps register or something along those lines?
Well, that's the website, amren.com. That's where people can register, get more information. They can always telephone too. You can telephone during business hours at 703-716-0900. But everything you'll need to know is online, and it will also give people an idea of the kind of activism we're ordinarily engaged in. We put new material on our webpage every day, and I think that your listeners would find amren.com a very valuable and interesting resource.
Okay, well, very good. I know we've got about 5 minutes left here before our next break. I want to open up the format for you. What else do you want our listeners to know? What else do you want them to go home and remember you by? And what conclusions do you want them to have? How can you summarize this for them?
How can I summarize this? Well, I remember in 1994, at the time of the very first American Renaissance Conference, I concluded my talk on that occasion with these words. I said that we have the right to be us, and only we can be us. I think that's as good a way of putting it as any. That white people, we have the absolute unconditional right to continue to live in the ways of our forefathers, to be proud of our heritage, to want our descendants and their culture to go on forever. We have that right. And at the same time, we are the only people who can make that happen. No other people on earth is going to take our civilization and move it forward. If we don't do it, no one will do it. And I think it is that fundamental concept that white people have to wake up to. Now, once they've woken up to that concept, what they do with it, I think if they care about the country that they're going to leave to their children or their grandchildren, they will realize that they can't simply sit idle. That knowledge of the racial fundamental aspect of America, of their own people, that is knowledge that comes with an obligation. And you owe it to your ancestors, and you owe it to your children to work for a country where your race and your people can live proudly without any kind of fear of being swamped by people unlike us and who in fact despise us. That would be my message to your listeners.